Lately, I've been talking a lot about how it was when I first started learning shiatsu in 1973, so it's quite a while ago now. I was very excited about it, and I was very excited about this idea that energy runs through the body. Back then, the training, I think, was very different because there was no accreditation. There was no organizations governing shiatsu in the Western country. It just was teachers coming from Asia, Japan, China, Korea, letting people know they were there and then teaching classes. We would go to Boston, we would go to New York, we would go to Philadelphia and seek out the teachers that were coming to share their skills with Westerners. And shiatsu was very simple. I've been talking about this a lot. The diagnosis was very simple. It was whole body chi. And they would look at that chi and say, chi doesn't move, make chi move. The idea of the practitioner learning was, of course, to learn some of the techniques. Those original techniques of the masters were mostly geared toward that idea of moving or balancing the whole body chi. It was not so much revolving around meridian diagnosis. That was a later development that came late 70s and into the 1980s. It started to grow more. Even as that idea of meridians grew, some of the original teachers, though, did not go in that direction. They stayed with this idea, primitive, simple, whole body chi. And the thing is that if you really took a look at what was going on in terms of results, you would see that some of those teachers and some of those practitioners got very powerful results with a much more simple and primitive method. One of the things that also was a big distinction is that learning how to be a practitioner involved developing yourself, your own development as a person, your own awareness of energy, not only in a person's body, but also in nature and also in your own body. Learning about the seasons and how energy is moving through the seasons, learning how energy moves through the times of day, learning how energy moves in different situations, different emotions. And so this was an internal development that went on. We would learn exercises and austerities, and we would practice really hard at that. And sometimes the training was really rough. Some of the teachers were very strict teachers. If you stuck with the practice, though, you could feel yourself getting stronger. You could feel yourself getting more clear. And when you started out practicing, you were giving treatments. People might like it, more or less. But then as you grew in your own internal awareness of energy and of yourself, you noticed that now your treatments were getting more significant response. And people started to seek you out to give them treatments. And that's how my practice went. In the beginning, I was looking for anyone I could to give a treatment to. I wanted to practice. And as time went on, people started to come to me. They started to call me. They were seeking me out because they wanted to experience a transformation of energy. Now, as time went on, accreditation became very important and licensing. So shiatsu education became more of a curriculum. And there were requirements, so many hours, so much theoretical education. And people had to fulfill that. But what I found is that as that became more and more important, some of these original, more primitive ideas started to be diminished and put by the wayside. And for me, those original practices where the practitioner was developing shiatsu not only as a practice, but also as a way of life. And really, to tell you the truth, a spiritual path, the path of the healer. And so these practices of, we would do chanting, we would do breathing exercises, we would do training out in different kinds of weather conditions to really strengthen, to really experience. I think that reaped really great rewards in terms of having the endurance and the clarity, and this is what helped us grow as practitioners and later on helped us grow as teachers. So I really like talking about this, and even though the practice of shiatsu has become more technical, it has matured a lot, it's much more known than it was in those times, I really like to encourage people to connect back to this original spirit of the practitioner. Not only learn shiatsu as a career, but to develop shiatsu as a way of life and a way to develop yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. There's other benefits as well, because you're treating other people, but also you learn in that way of the practitioner that the client oftentimes is a mirror for you. So you're constantly able to see how you need to change, how you need to grow, how you need to balance yourself to keep yourself healthy. Other benefits are bringing shiatsu into your family life. I've been very, very fortunate to have these tools over and over again through the years to treat my children, to treat my friends and other family members. Not only to give them relief, to help them with their healing, but also very interesting in how it keeps you connected and how it keeps the personal relationship on a very deep and grounded level. Even if there's trouble from time to time in those big family situations, treating people with body work, moving chi, helps to keep the thread of positiveness and the loving sensation moving through the family. And so that's been very important for me, is how shiatsu affects the family. Now, I'm not saying it's 100%. I'm not saying it's all the time. But overall, it's been very beneficial for over 40 years for me in working not only in my practice, but also bringing it into my private life. I'm really encouraging people that study shiatsu now, in this time, in this day and age, to go back, connect to that spirit, the original spirit of the practice, bring it forward with the modern developments to synthesize that and bring all of that forward as we expand the education and we connect to more people that really want to learn this practice. A lot of the technique that we learned back in those early days when shiatsu was new to the West were techniques that these teachers, and some of them were considered to be the masters of shiatsu, they were the techniques that they used to move chi. When chi didn't move, make the chi move. If chi was chaotic, calm the chi. If chi was scattered, bring it to the center. So it's a very simple thought process. See what was in excess and help to create a balance for that. There was a series of techniques that were pretty universal. Of course, different teachers, practitioners had different ways to go about it. I've been really interested in teaching those techniques again, because even though they're in some of the curriculums, oftentimes they get pushed off to the side for the sake of this more detailed, specialized diagnosis and very methodical way of treating. This original way of treating was not that methodical. Of course, it had continuity, but it was moving just with the whole body chi more than, let's say, meridian diagnosis or kyo-jitsu. Very valuable to know, very valuable to use. But this other way is more primitive, and it's more essential to how the whole person, the whole body is functioning. And so we can use, of course, both together, synthesize easily, but this original way of using technique is something that has been also pushed aside, and I think it can be very valuable and very invigorating. That's what I find when I teach this to classes. They know all the new contemporary ideas and how to work that way, and then they see these other techniques and say, wow, this gives me a whole different way to look at it, a whole different way to feel when I give the treatment. It also means a lot of times in the old way of treating that you're using your whole body. You're moving a lot. A lot of styles are very meditative, and that's wonderful. But also sometimes the practitioner not only wants to move, but his movement, her movement, is the thing that helps transfer the right effect to the situation. So using technique in that way, and it's a very different way the practitioner's using their body a lot of times. Even when I've run into people, or people come to the class and I'm showing them some of these things, say, oh, I learned that a long time ago, but I forgot. I'm not really using it. Also, what can be useful is to understand what some of the ideas that the original teachers had in mind when they used some of the simple techniques. Like, what did they think about when they were using knife hand? Now, sometimes I think they weren't really thinking of anything, but they had some ideas according to the chi, according to the condition of the person. So knife hand technique, or certain kinds of stretching, variations, and how they would look at that in relationship, let's say, to the structure of the body. A lot of the original practitioners of shiatsu were very aware of the structure, very aware of the spine. And so not just using meridians, but also really focusing a lot of times on the dense physical body. As a matter of fact, some of the teachers would focus mostly on the dense physical body. They weren't that interested in the meridian system. And these were some of the original teachers that were doing what was called at that time shiatsu. Now, according to the modern concept of shiatsu, some people might say, oh, well, that's not really shiatsu. But it was shiatsu before what we have now being called shiatsu. Anyway, both is good. Both can be synthesized. It's sometimes when we practice something that has evolved without knowing really what it evolved from, we lose a lot of the potential, or you can even say the potency of that practice. And so that's what I'd like to talk about with the techniques of the masters. That's what we've been doing in a lot of the classes that we've been teaching lately, going back to the beginning, back to the simple, back to the primitive. Well, I want to put out another video soon and demonstrate one of these original type techniques and how we apply it just from the viewpoint of whole body chi. And I think it can be interesting. In the first sight of it, people might say, well, that's pretty simple. But then when you look at the whole picture, then you realize, well, yes, it is simple, but it's also very effective. So let's keep in touch. You'll hear from us soon when we complete that video, and we look forward to hearing your responses to it.